I was gonna see how long we could go with silence. So our Saturday morning roundtable, we do the first Saturday of each month, talk about our projects and what they are, where we're stuck on them, if we're stuck on them, what we could use help with, beg other people to come talk about theirs so that we don't have to hear about ours on repeat. Yeah. Do you want to go first, Aiden?
Sure. So my main project is Conferati, which, if anyone's watching this and doesn't know what that is, a platform to help fight misinformation is, I guess, the quickest way to describe it. I've been working with some developers on Upwork. I've been engaged with somebody that I guess have hired on in a very part-time basis as a development advisor, just to sort of understand the specs and as I create documentation for developers to help explain it to them. Um, I had been working with him, posted an actual job posting on Upwork to get through it. Went through around, only got one person to actually properly respond to the invitation. Um, and that person gave a very different estimate from the original estimate from the advisor, like 5 times more. So I am, yeah, taking a quick step back and just sort of working on that content because I sort of, I guess, forgot the true purpose that I was actually working with the development advisor, we're supposed to create that content. And so now actually I'm doing that properly as intended so that I can hopefully explain it a bit better and get a bit more consistent estimates and then move forward with things from there.
Because that's a pretty good indication. Like the advisor gives you a certain estimate, someone else gives you 5 times. You're like, right, the communication of like how to explain this because
Yeah.
that
Well,
got misaligned.
and the advisor, I had like probably 3 meetings with him, and like he had like me just yammering on for an hour, and then he went away for a week and came back with a bunch of questions and stuff like. So there was a lot more back and forth than just a 1 hour sit down with someone. Um, and it was also good. I think Bentley gave roughly the same estimate as the advisor, so it was like those two sort of seem to be in alignment. So it's, I think, you know, a decent benchmark to work against.
Sounds right to me. So my 3 projects. Did you want to? Was that both of them? Both of your projects that you did you give an update on, or just
Yeah, I mean that's the main one. Like stuff like wiki election is under that. So
right? My 3 projects solution raising. We just did a solution raising on Roe v. Wade, which was awesome. We're not going to talk about the powerful idea that we came up with, and I would really love to be able to move solution raising into a podcast, but it's not within the realm of my ability. So I need other people to do that. But the more that I'm on TikTok, the more I reach out to other micro and not so micro influencers to talk about issues that they care about, and just have fun with it. Fun with talking Roe v. Wade, but I mean, yes, actually, yes,
that's an
feeling like
entertaining
you're less
topic.
helpless and you have power over these complex issues. Peer coaching, same issues issues is the wrong word, but same challenges and that we've been having for months of just like why basically everyone who comes is invited by me with very odd few exceptions and or comes from the game B space and which is invited by me. And so it's figuring out why people aren't inviting people and figuring out how to get us to 15 to 20 before we introduce a point system to find more people and have the input on the point system. Not getting too much into that, peer coaching and solution raising. The one free app is that's the project I'm working on with the other 2 people on TikTok, which is we're letting that name literally be the vision of like one free app. And so no single leader out of the 4 of us, and meeting on Thursday mornings twice. So like once live to talk about it and update people, and once to move it forward with the 4 of us, and then other people. There's other sub committees with under the project. Like I don't go to the admin meeting, I don't go to the UX meetings, I don't go to the UX meetings. It's like right, no, that's not. But we have had a lot more people involved with this project, which of course is also people leave without, like, you don't necessarily, you know what I'm saying. lots of things. My brain isn't able to complete at the moment. But also just being on TikTok, and that itself is kind of a project of both just my own personal project of like, do I want to put these ideas out in the world? Do I want to interact with people? And how do I find people I do want to interact with when, like, honestly, I do feed a little bit off of troll energy. It's like, I want debate, I want comments, I want conversations, and the more idiotic, the better, because they're more entertaining. And
I mean, unfortunately, that works.
it's funny. I mean, I'm basically done with the update, but I had, because of the Roe v. Wade thing, and not saying the one idea that we're not putting up on TikTok, but is totally up on YouTube on the Solution Raising channel if anyone wants to go watch that hour.
Okay.
And what was my point? That I made a couple of them, just like one saying that they could tie up phone lines. Like all these people that can't go out because of the pandemic and can't go out for whatever reason. You can tie up every government organization. You can tie up literally everyone, every SCOTUS person. And people are like, we should robocall. I'm like, no, we should not robocall, because robocalling is very different. It would be like robots marching in the street. It doesn't quite count.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and it would be kind of terrorist. Like, it's like, no, you don't want everything to go to its knees every time we disagree. But this is 70% who disagree. And these people got appointed on false pretenses. So it's like, yeah, nope, until you get your, anyway. So I made one video on that, which, got some like, yes, good ideas, but not too much engagement. One on just like, if God wanted us not to have abortions, he would have made us marsupials or egg layers, and one of the people was like, well, what other mammals, when they make bad decisions, don't have abortions or something along those lines. And I was like, you're right, because they don't have access to medical care, but they do eat their young, right? Like they do in all of these species they have. And so because this was just a response to a comment, and I got it wrong, because animals actually do abort. In fact, a lot of animals have literally like biological mechanisms to abort when they're out of resources, and some of them just yeet their children at the predator when they to get away. There's a lot of strategies. Like Mother Nature isn't pro-choice, but it was funny because I had said animals don't have abortions, and then went on to explain that they eat their young, because there was like misinformation. It went way more viral because everyone was like, actually rabbits reabsorb, and I was like, I was literally talking about the medical intervent. Like I was like, right. I was thinking about it as a medical procedure, and therefore they don't get that.
There's no quicker way to get the right information than to be wrong on the internet.
Which is like everything, because I would never have said it just to get that, right? Like I'm like, I care about being accurate in my language, and yet all the time I'm not accurate in the language. And they always pick the thing that I'm like, that's not the point. Like anyway, it's really interesting watching what goes viral on TikTok, and just learning my learning from my emotional reaction to other people's videos and comments and responses, and on mine, and allowing like the other 3 people we meet with on TikTok, because even the one who's not on camera is more okay getting followers and videos, and like, yeah, they want their channel to get better, right? And I'm like, don't follow me, do not tweet. Like, I'm like, I do want comments, I do want interaction, but I also don't want to go viral. Like, I don't want to have that big influx of people at once. It was like, my first one got like 100 hearts, and I was like, that was overwhelming. It was on capitalism. Like that was the one about a week ago. And then these two, like, because they can kind of argue back and forth with each other. And I'm like, literally 20 people have said rabbits can abort. Do you like it's in the comments? You can see it. Like, it's like, just like someone else's. And anyway, TikTok is interesting. I've never learnt more, never like found more like niche groups of people. And at the same time, it's everything beautiful and toxic about social media in 15-second clips. Like, it's just like, yeah.
Which, I mean, let's be honest, the beautiful and horrific of social media, that's just humanity.
And that, I think I told you in our conversation that wasn't, here, but that person that was like people want more than their share, so therefore your ideas won't work. And I was like, well, do you want more than your fair share? Because that's always my question when people want to like put onto humanity, like, this is why it won't work because, and I'm like, the beautiful thing about my idea is it doesn't require everybody be selfless. just find the selfless people and make something with and for them. And you don't even have to be selfless. You just like your average selfishness, less than that. Less than your average selfishness. Not, you don't have to be Mother Teresa, who wasn't Mother Teresa.
Yeah, and you just make it easier to be selfless. Like where like, oh, you want me to do all that? Oh, I can just make this one small change and it's super easy to do. All right.
And that's like, I don't know. We're just gonna have an open Briscoe conversation for the next hour on the right people will find it. It'll be perfect. What was I gonna say though? I don't remember.
Yeah, or sister. I'm not sure if you heard from her. She had some interesting stuff. She was actually talking about possibly joining today, but she hasn't texted me.
Well, we're not on sibling chat though, so
Yeah, I know, but I had mentioned this, and now she kind of has a project. Yeah, it's weird.
Together Tech.
Hmm?
She came today, okay, but I know Together Tech is not.
Oh,
no,
hey, person.
there's already enough Briscoes on Together Tech. Don't.
That's fair. Here, I'll add this person. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I'm off camera. I don't know if you can hear me though.
Yep, we can hear.
Oh, great.
Do you have a project that you are working on in the Game B space or Game B adjacent?
I think it's Game B adjacent. So I'm working on a platform that will help communities have conversations in a thoughtful, respectful way. That might be a little too vague, but
like a platform. I'm trying to figure. Is it a technology, like a way of having a conversation, or
very much so. So it's a way, kind of like instead of Zooms, for example, it's a way for there to be more of like a drop-in audio space for communities so that people can get into conversations more easily, more spontaneously, and more without having to be on video and, being on a computer or whatever.
Similar to Marco Polo, which I've never actually used, or more like Clubhouse, like asynchronous communication or synchronous communication?
Very funny you should say that. I used to work at Marco Polo, but no, it's more like Clubhouse than Marco Polo, but private. So in Clubhouse, it's sort of like a very broad base of people and a sort of stage oriented. This is more for within communities and more like direct conversations with people.
So I'm just putting technology together in my head. Like most of my group chat is on Signal. So like a Signal group chat meets Clubhouse. It's like your own personal Clubhouse with the people you choose to have those conversations with.
Yeah, basically. So if you imagine like in Game B, for example, you could have an event scheduled, but it would be something that people could drop in on in audio, so they wouldn't have to be on video. Or you could have an ongoing kind of accountability group, somewhat like this space, I guess, is, but not public and on audio.
Interesting.
Ask the normal questions that I ask, which is how many people are working on the project right now?
I am the main person working on it, and I have people who are working on it part-time with me. So I'm the only full-time person right now.
Is there anything that what am I asking? So we get together once a month and do these, and we've heard about our own projects and each other's projects a lot. And so whenever there's someone new that has a project, we kind of put them in the hot seat as far as
okay.
What does it need, and if that is in any way not what you're looking for, by all means, don't feel.
I think I just wanted to say hi, and I noticed that there were people building from the Game B community, so I wanted to be able to meet you all and learn from you. I don't really have an ask, but that's a good thing to know to come with, or like a problem or some kind of mastermindy kind of situation. I'm right now, I've been prototyping, and so we have not built this yet. It's like this is the sort of transition moment into that part of the process. So if you have gone through that yourself, I'd love to hear about it. And, how are you supporting your projects, and things like that are really interesting to me to know. And
Adriel, I think your project is more in that realm. I'm concentrating on getting 10,000 people together, like a network of people first, in order to be able to start funding and working on the projects that come out of one of my other ideas, which is solution raising. So like I can see in the tech space how often the same things get made or how much they just don't get funding. So I'm concentrating on like getting the people together that would make something, for instance, like a communication device that like we need to have, right? How would we integrate all of our needs, video, voice, chat in one way? Anyway, that like getting people together first. So I'm not in alpha or beta stage in any way. But Adriel is looking at creating.
Sorry, I was trying to figure out who posted that Facebook comment, but it's not actually on the thread that I was looking at, so I was confused.
Yeah, and I remember one thing that I wanted to ask was, who is managing the GameB Mighty Networks? Because I remember Jubilee mentioning at some point that you were doing Facebook adminning, and I don't use Facebook, so I don't really know how the community is sort of structured, I guess, in a big way, since I'm not in that part of the community.
Yeah, I'm not sure who runs the Mighty Network. I'm not actually involved in that.
I believe it's basically the same admins. I was asked to be an admin on the Mighty Networks one, and I said no, but somehow I am an admin on the Mighty Networks one. I can let people in, so I believe it's just the same admins. But I've never seen anything, like nothing go down in that space, so maybe it does, and I'm not involved because I'm never on it. Whereas I have seen stuff go down in the like Facebook one, because it's designed more for division and designed more to create drama. So we had to deal with actual drama, actual people not getting along, and what the rules are that makes that happen. But the
one part is
doesn't seem
a user research session, but I'd love to learn more about that, because I think it's really interesting how a lot of the tools that exist now for communities to talk to each other are really built for something very different than that. So how you have to manage them is pretty interesting. But Adriel, I think you were prompted to tell about, where you're at, and maybe I can learn. Sorry, I'm a little late. You might have already gone over.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So my project is called Conferati, and it is kind of a lot of things. The main thing is it's a platform to help fight misinformation. And it, I guess, kind of spawned off of a related project called WikiElection that was started off intending to be like IMDb for politics, where it was very much like everything they voted on, what governments they've been a part of, sort of a one-stop shop for knowing what a politician sort of has done, is likely to do, that sort of thing. And then it quickly got jumbled up in that commonly gets tied up with news and science, and just they all sort of end up being this cluster of things that reference each other. So Conferati sort of turned into a lot of it will end up being looking at content that typically experts would take a look at, and then having profiles for experts to sort of say, oh, hey, here's what these scientists that chimed in on this scientific issue are actually saying. Here's their qualifications, who they're paid by, etc.
Interesting. I'm going to share with you, I'm on the board of an organization called the Pro-Social Design Network. And it's sort of trying to use design principles in terms of fighting misinformation. It sounds like maybe it could be a resource for you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
One of the things that I think is really interesting, and I mean, I'm curious as sort of a newcomer-ish person, is how I think of GameB at what Jim's posting in the Mighty Network, which is the only community I'm in, as being very focused on like intentional housing, sort of cooperative housing. But it seems like there's sort of a larger sort of flavor of GameB that maybe I'm kind of hearing from what the two of you are talking about and what you're working on. Is that an accurate take?
Yeah. Why does it say Daniel? Interesting. But yes, I would say that is different. I didn't even know that Game B is, on the social network is sort of focused on the affordable housing part of things.
I think it's Jim who's a
Jim is
focus
okay.
on. Yeah, Jim's focused, and same with there's a lot of people within the Game B space who there seems to be certain umbrella projects, community and housing being one of them, right? Food, eco villages, and the systems that would support that. And I think that's actually where a lot of the Game B people kind of ended up. Like Jordan has his own version. I don't know if Brett does, but Jim Rutt has his own version. And when I came in, Future Thinkers feels like their own, even though they weren't instrumental in creating Game B, that they have their eco village that they've stopped kind of doing YouTube videos and are now more focused on the eco village, because I think we need villages, we need community to be able to sustain the projects, and other people that are working more on like technology projects or personal development or more of the communication side or the information side. There seems to be, because we need all of those things. And Game B to me is more of a placeholder for a future, and then we're all trying to work towards our versions of that future. And you need all of these things in place. Like Jim Rutt's Game B isn't Game B, but Jim Rutt was one of the founders of Game B.
Got
Did
it.
that answer the question, Laura? Sorry, my mind is.
I think so. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
That's how we got started here, was a lot of people, when I entered Game B, everyone had a project and they didn't want to let go of their project, but they all had an idea of like, here's what Game B should focus on, right? Like everyone ought to let go of what they're focusing on and focus on mine. If everyone just focused on my project, we'd be saved. And couldn't quite see the irony that they weren't willing to let go of their own project, but they wanted everyone to let go of theirs. And so we started Together Tech as a project of projects. Of bring your project, you don't need to let go of it, you don't need to, but how do we facilitate all of those projects? I know there's other people working in that space as well, but that's what this evolved from.
Cool.
My mind usually fills silences with questions, but none are coming to mind.
There was a comment that I don't think that we had addressed, and I was trying to find out who it was from and didn't. It was somebody asking if your project is available somewhere, or is it actually viewable somewhere? It sounds like a great concept, and they know a few folks interested in online storytelling and conversation.
Oh, great. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I forgot that this was like a live stream kind of situation. Hi, Facebook user. Yeah, so since we're not launched, we don't have a very comprehensive thing that you can look at, but if you go to getwith.app, then that's a place where you can sign up and be on a future mailing list for when we're actually a little bit more ready.
Okay.
We can add that in then.
That's what I just put in the private chat.
I don't know how to put it.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Daniel.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, so I see that was Daniel as the first one. You're showing it properly now, just the first one didn't. So it's that there, the getwith.app?
That is right, yeah.
Perfect, okay.
I don't know if I have Facebook.
What was that, Jubilee?
Sorry, I'm just talking to myself. I was like, Daniel's watching, and I think I sent Daniel the link to participate for 2 months in a row, and then didn't send it this one. But I don't know if he's looking to just watch. if you send me a message on Messenger, I will send you the link if you want to participate on video. Daniel, it's always great to hear from you. And now I've again lost where we are. I've been here. Well, how long have you been working on your project for, Laura?
Nice. Yeah, sorry, it's Laura, and
Laura, I was going to say, am I saying your name right, Laura?
I know it's a hard one to guess. I have been working. Well, that's a hard question. All my life is one answer, because I got into this thinking about the problem of social isolation and loneliness and belonging, as somebody who's kind of been one of those many traveling people who, have been a part of a lot of things, but also maybe felt a part of things in some way. I've wanted to understand a little bit more about this problem, and as you probably know, and this is probably, I think part of why I think of Game B as being adjacent, that we have a huge social isolation problem. People, because they are living far apart from each other, but also working on gig work or remote work, or, they live far away from their families. It's incredible. Like 2 out of every 5 Americans has no friends, reports having no friends. Like that's pretty extreme. And there's a lot of incredible health effects that come from feeling like you are socially isolated or lonely. Like your actual years of life are taken from you, not to mention many more health problems, mental health problems, addiction, polarization, you name it. They're all connected to being connected. And so what I saw is that communities are a place that are kind of bringing people together, but a lot of people are creating communities or developing communities with other people, but online the tools are not designed to solve this problem. And so when I left Marco Polo, it was about 6 months ago, I guess, or 7 months ago, to work on this idea full time and really just understand where the opportunities were, because at that point I just knew I wanted to work on something around helping people find belonging. And then it's kind of made me realize, well, people are already solving this problem. It's just that the tools aren't very good.
That was one of the biggest gifts that Game B gave me, was that feeling of belonging doesn't quite feel right. It was like finding people who also hadn't belonged but were working on the same issues. But sense of belonging would be the best way to describe it. Found my people. And there was this epiphany during Game B of like struggling to create it. How is it going to, what is the focus going to be on? That like one of the most powerful things that would create Game B is giving everyone, I'm not going to explain this well, their version of Game B, right? Their community, their people. Like it doesn't need to be that they're focused on saving the world or creating an omni-win future. If it was about trains or reptiles or economics or 18th century Greece, I have no idea, but like just whatever your interest is in, what if you can find people who share your values, that is powerful, even if you're not working on saving the world.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think you hit on something there, that it's really the values first, communities that I think are the most powerful, and I hope that I'm going to be able to serve. I think interest groups are fine, but they are not as powerful as the ones where you can feel like, oh, we actually care about possibility together.
I like that. Yes, the possibility, because it's like Game B also, to me anyway, one of the gifts it gave me was diversity of thought, that there's a ton of like, it's like, oh, everyone here must think the same as me because we're creating the same thing. And that has not been my experience in any way. It's like people who I never would have thought that right-wing people would be there because I was so left-wing. And it's no, there's absolutely people who are on that side. And anyway, I've learned a lot from that. We have this possibility in common, but not necessarily our highest values, or our highest values, but the secondary are off. Like it's like, oh, we're unique and diverse. And how do we serve that uniqueness and diversity? Because I think it's a blessing.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's what we're missing, right? Is that interchange, and also being able to do it with respect. And so, kind of trying to design that in is something that I think is an opportunity.
Absolutely. You weren't here for when I don't even know if I said what I'm working on, but peer coaching is one of my more recent projects. It only came
Wow.
about
Yeah,
a year ago.
I think I remember that, and I think I might have. I would love to see that, because when I first started this project, like before I was on this path, I thought peer coaching and like peer groups were really a huge way to address this. And now I think still that's very true. Just like it's helpful if you have the community structure around them. So there's, yeah, at first I thought maybe you could just put people into peer groups where they cared about something, but now I see that larger community aspect of it is so powerful, because it kind of creates some shared terminology or shared sense of purpose, and also maybe a little bit of a vetting element that I think is helpful for those. But yeah, I'm really curious to know more about your peer coaching and what you've learned from running them.
It's interesting because it came about almost as needing, like I needed a project, a product to bring people together that they could work on something right now, right? That it wasn't, well, we're waiting to gather 10,000 people. We can't just be like, give me your email when we get 10,000. We'll let you know how it's going. And I didn't know it would be as powerful as it has been. I got the idea because I'd already had solution raising, which is a way for a small group of people to generate an idea that would improve a complex issue if you had 10,000 people and $100,000. And we have yet to come up with an issue that we can't spark some very powerful idea for, but we don't have 10,000 people. So we can't make them. So like, this is how we get 10,000 people, is peer coaching. It started as a 6-week course, 6 people doing it for 6 weeks. And then the second time we tried to run one, it just was hard to find 6 people at the same time period. So now it's drop-in. And we're just like figuring it out as we go, as like it became drop-in because that's what works for us as co-hosts. And the co-hosting, that I had so many conversations that I would show up for and plan for in the Game B space, and nobody would show up. And it's hard putting yourself out there and having no one else be there. Whereas if you have a co-host, the worst that happens is nobody comes and you have a conversation, the two of you. And so anyway, it's designed that it's 4 weeks. I'm not explaining this well. The 6-week course was these 4 topics. We had a solution raising on one of the 4 topics, and then we introduced them to the bigger network idea in the 6th week. And now we run through the 4 topics, which are health, relationship, time, and resources. And each week we tackle a different one, and we talk about where we are, where we would like to be in our ideal life, and what is stopping us from getting there. And then we have an open discussion to help each other remove as many of those obstacles as possible. And it works on so many levels. Before we had pre-work, we have less pre-work now because no one does it. So we should, again, working with where people are, but like doing the pre-work of like just answering those questions. Where am I? Where do I want to be? What are stopping me from getting there? Helps you come up with your own solutions. Coming up and saying it out loud to other people helps you hear it yourself and do it. Hearing other people give each other advice, getting advice, all of it is so powerful. And it's designed where, because it's drop-in right now and it's Tuesdays at 11 Pacific Standard Time, once you've attended one, you can invite people to them. And once you've attended 4, you can go on and co-host your own. So it's designed to grow exponentially in a sustainable way, because nobody needs to, co-hosts don't need formal training. They just need to have a room open for an hour, right? Like have people show up. And this isn't a psychiatrist. This isn't a coach who's giving, you're supposed to take their advice as any more than yours. This is just holding space. Anyway, so it's designed to grow exponentially, and it has been very powerful as far as people moving forward in their lives and figuring out just those little things that help in those 4 areas.
I myself have participated and run some of these peer coaching in trying to learn about that space. And I think it is incredible how, and this is definitely a similar hypothesis for what I'm making, that people in these small groups really do so much work on their own to be thoughtful and respectful and listening to each other. Like, it's a weird thing when you have a small group of people, how some kinds of human norm just kick in and people tend to be able to behave a little bit more. Usually, I mean, I'm sure there are exceptions, but they're able to be more of listeners and comfortable. I was curious if one of the things that I tried actually was doing them on Marco Polo, which was really good. The problem is getting people to use Marco Polo, which is a thing. But the asynchronous aspect of it is kind of interesting, where people can kind of have their thought when they have it and then share it in. And so, yeah. And thank you, Daniel, for pointing that out. I'll have to go and figure out what's going on with that link.
I wasn't aware what Daniel pointed out, but glad one of us is watching the comments. Let's see, contact. I'll read those after. Oops. I do not remember. Oh, I remember what I was going to respond to. That I do think people in person and on whether on voice or video chat are, because it's like it feels like a real person. They're way less likely to troll and way less likely to show up and try to cause havoc. But there is, because we're so lonely and so isolated, especially over the last 2 years, there's definitely an energy that people bring to the space when they haven't been able to interact with people before. They haven't been able to talk about Game B subjects. They haven't been able to talk about their own life. It's a combination of like puppy energy and like needing to vent for 3 hours, like all at once. And it's like, it goes away though. It goes away after 1, 2, 3 sessions. And then you can kind of calm down and be more yourself. It's a common, I know I experienced it when I first came into Game B, and I still experience it if I go a few weeks without talking to somebody else on video chat, of like needing to info dump or emotionally dump or something along those lines. But it's especially when people first enter the space, and giving people the grace for that, because we all go through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And figuring out, I mean, we haven't yet at peer coaching, but figuring out, there are a few people I've met in the world, online and in real life, who I'm like, you're not ready to be invited. Like, you would be more disruptive than be able to get or give advice. And it's like, I don't want to have that as the barriers, but yeah, we have to be able to be effective together. And so, but I do think it would be very helpful when people enter Game B to almost get like a sponsor and to like what's called them, rookies, I don't know what else to call them, like get together and like vent at each other for 3 hours. Just get it all out.
Well, one thing that I suggest to folks who are creating communities is having an onboarding where there is some kind of buddy or like small group on cohort onboarding or something, so that you kind of create that space. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I think Game B would be a really good experiment for that, actually. I'm imagining that people are attracted to it, but don't really have a sense of like the community norms right away.
Actually, Game B would be a good space for that. It's weird because like we as Game B, I'm going to talk for Game B when I shouldn't be talking for Game B, but like we're resistant to onboarding because there's a certain amount of like, you almost need it to be chaotic for people. Like if there's too much of a, like, first you go to this class, then you talk to these people, and they don't kind of understand that there isn't one umbrella for Game B. There is no 101 course. It is just a future space holder after Game A. Like when we've reached OmniWin and Anti-Rivalrous Future, and how we get there is diverse. And so onboarding kind of takes away from that. But I think there's like a community aspect that could honor that, and also be like, right, so meet once a week and talk about, I know I've had one of the best blessings from Game B is this group of people I talk to every Friday. It started as a way to practice Omega Rule, which came out of Game B. Do you know what Omega Rule is, Laura?
I don't.
Because anything we try to explain in Game B is so overly complicated. Omega Rule is like separating this, from my understanding, the signal from the noise. So when someone's speaking, if I don't understand, instead of they're wrong, it's like I'm not quite understanding it, right? I'm not And so helping either the speaker tease apart the signal and the noise, or trying to hear the signal and the noise, and giving each other the benefit of the doubt. And so there's a lot baked into it. I mean, we haven't even talked about what Omega Rule is, I think, in the last 2 years, but we started with that as our foundation, and getting to know these people more deeply, and just like what's going on in the world, and we bring up current events and getting other people's perspective on it has been such a huge blessing. It's the one conversation that there wasn't really a point to besides practicing Omega Rule, and it's been the best. And so that is what I keep trying to offer Game B, and I've put it in the Game B space of like, connect with each other one-on-one, but also in these small groups. And if that was, you're almost assigned one when you entered, I think that would be
I think what I notice is that it's the onboarding is maybe less about indoctrinating people into the ideas, but more into the norms of the group, so they feel like they're free to participate and contribute, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And yet we would have to have that conversation and agree to those things to be able to onboard people, right? And the whole Game B thing isn't going to do that, but that can absolutely be something that's done with the 5 or 6 of you, right? Like, how are we going to treat each other? What is this going to look like? What is our version of Game B? What is our, why are we here? And if it is a match, great. And if not, you go back in the pool and find new people.
Yeah, and it might just be more within like the different, I guess, groups within Game B. Like Game B Projects has sort of its own set of rules for, like, hey, don't post every 4 hours for your project. If everyone did it, it would get insane. So, maybe once a week, like, to settle down. And we even, if we know enough about your project, that could help us guide. Be like, oh, you should get together with so and so. They have, maybe not a similar project, but like similar enough that you guys might have something to talk about. I'm not sure how many other sort of subgroups there are in the Game B space.
Yeah, and we're focused on projects, and it's nice to be able to have a project to have teamwork around. But then you're also like, all of our projects, they're very Game B and Game B adjacent, but they're also not, no Game B panel has looked at them and been like, yes, they're Game B. You can go forth and say you're Game B, because it is a very, like I said, a placeholder. So it's in that same vein that if people don't have projects, they come to Game B, they don't have projects, they want to be told where to go and who to talk to be on a project. And it's kind of like I don't know why this example is coming up, but like in college and in high school, when they have like the job fair, you go, like, that your school's not hiring you, right? Like they're just showcasing the job fair. And that's kind of what Game B is doing, is like, as projects, as all of these different umbrellas, to be able to honor that, and also give people to talk to say yes, find and facilitate that. And unfortunately, we don't have the tools, because that is a big undertaking, even having one conversation. And
it's almost like its own project would be that. So it'd be a project where you offer people in the Game B space an opportunity to spend time with each other when they join, or something like that. That would be a project in and of itself, that then, I guess, from what you're saying, would not require the approval of all of Game B. I don't know if that's getting too tricky.
Which is like, every event would be like, if there was a Game B official, this is the official welcome, then yes, it would almost need that. But because it's like, anyone could have a welcome. Hey, I want to meet new people. I'm new here, or I've been here a while and I want to meet the new people. Like, it is about initiating your own action. Like, anyone can do it. Everyone has permission, but it's hard to get that permission when you haven't been onboarded, and you're like, what's going on here? What's like, it's a weird energy, and yet we have to kind of work with it and own it and figure out the tools. One of the things for Game B projects, I think you touched on it, Laura, that's its own project, right? And there's a lot of projects that are so desperately needed to create anything adjacent to Game B, but that solution, that thing that is needed, is nobody's passion. It's like, we need this to get to the thing we are passionate about. And yet, because this is not someone's focus, people come on, try to work on it, and it's like, it doesn't hold their energy. It doesn't keep them there. And so those same things get made 80% of the way again and again and again, instead of like we're just waiting. We're waiting for someone to come on board, and that's actually their purpose.
Right.
It's actually the thing they care about is the admin work, is the organization, is the communication tools, are the information tools. And
I mean, I think this is a really important question, because as I see a lot of different communities coming up and wanting to be more decentralized and more sort of like voluntary duty kind of things, that there just happen to be things that a lot of people love doing and things that a lot of people do not love doing, but are very hard to run a community where there's not those less desirable things being done. And especially if one of those things is figuring out what those undesirable things are. And, so it's just sort of like very easy for things to fall apart.
Absolutely. And it's like, I can envision a technology, and I'm sure you probably can too, Laura, of like how that gets fixed, right? Of like, toilets get scrubbed, they get put up on the thing. Somebody says, oh yeah, I can scrub a toilet, and goes and scrubs the toilet. But that platform, right? The thing that organizes it all and coordinates it, although it's the solution, it's nobody's passion. So it doesn't get made, right? Because it's like, no, what I want is someone to clean my toilets. I'm really passionate about having someone clean my toilets, but not about actually creating the thing that fixes it, if I'm explaining that properly.
Yes, exactly.
And which is why I'm also focused on gathering the 10,000 people, because then we can see those things. And even if we're not passionate about creating it, we have enough funding and enough people to be like, here's what I would need it to do. And we can make a beta that meets most of our needs most of the time, and nearly guarantee success when we make technology, because we already have the people's input.
Is the funding like a subscription, or how do you have funding from getting 10,000 people?
Yes, it would be a subscription, like a Netflix of apps.
Got it. Adriel, I feel like I don't know what you're working on, even though maybe I should have picked up on that. Can you speak a little more about it? I mean, I understand the general framework of the combating misinformation, but maybe like where are you at on the project, and what's happening? What are you learning from doing it?
Sure. So where I'm at on the project now is I'm working with a development advisor to sort of help get the specs ready to get a developer working on it. I'd got a quote last week that was like 5 times the estimate that two other people that I had been working with had given me. So I'm going to be doing a bit more work on sort of the explainers. But the approach I'm taking is to sort of have it developed as like forget the term that is used, but a little bit like Salesforce, if you know what that is, where it's sort of like, table based and it's flexible and you can do it, but it's just like single purpose for a bunch of connected sites, where I'll have a developer build that, and then I'll go do the actual like adding of records and creating tables and connecting things and doing all of that part of the work. And so now, I guess the shortest answer is hopefully starting development on the MVP, in the next few weeks.
Exciting.
Yeah, I'll look forward to actually having a product, because
how will you like will you be fundraising to do that, or how?
One of the sort of the possible blockers in the project has been like a insistence on there's no investors, it's only like sort of crowdsourced. I had tried a Kickstarter, I have a Patreon, but there wasn't much to show. It was mostly like theoretical and prototypes, and people weren't very interested in that. So I sort of put a pause on that, and I've been focusing on trying to get an actual prototype up and going so that people can see it and use it. I think that'll be a bit more interesting. And then the goal would be to do something like Patreon.
Cool. Yeah, I think this is another area of interest of like how do you both pay people when they do work, and then also not get into like creating a new system of needing extractive based things to do research, research the project, etc. Yeah,
totally. And then I guess I've also got stuff that we've talked about in Together Tech, and now I'm kind of starting to think about how I would do it. Is more of like I guess a typical Game A project that would help fund some of this, because so far I've just been paying for development out of pocket, and I'd rather not have to do that.
Yeah, I really relate to that quite a bit. I'm really gonna jump off in a minute, but I wanted to let Daniel know that I think that link should be fixed now, or the email should be fixed.
All right.
We'll do. We'll
Anyone watching right now, but hopefully they'll watch that back or just try again later.
Yeah, he'll probably check it out later, knowing him. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Laura. It was nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Laura.
Yes, I hope next time I'll be here in more full embodiment, but it was fun to hang out with you.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right. Should we end the broadcast? And
sure.
all right.
Bye.